Hi, I'm Jordan Thorne and we're here at Greenbuild 2019. Today I'm joined by Daniele Horton. She's the founder and president of Verdani Partners. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So can you tell me briefly about how you came to be in your current role and why you decided to found your own company?
Sure. I think my love for sustainability kind of was like, I grew up in Brazil, and so I grew up around nature, going camping and waterfalls and hiking. So I think that from my early childhood I had that kind of love for nature. But like in 2003 I actually got my Elite AP accreditation and I totally fell in love for it. I'm an architect by training, but I decided to kind of pivot my career in more sustainability. So I switched my master's degree major. I got a master's in sustainable development, and I learned about like all the crazy things that were happening. Like we were doing like global carbon simulation models, and I was just like terrified with what was happening. Yeah. So at the time I was like trying to figure out what I could do to make the biggest impact, and I thought about joining the UN or the World Bank. Wow. And I remember at the time a professor's like, no, go to the private sector, you'll be able to make progress faster. So I felt like going to the dark side, but I ended up going to work for a full service real estate firm. And I just thought in the private sector you can make progress faster. Yeah. So I spent about 10 years working for a real estate firm and helped green their whole portfolio. We were like #1 on GRES for like 3 years in a row. 100% of the portfolio was LEED certified. But I felt like to really scale change, I felt like the change wasn't happening fast enough with the whole market as a whole, like the real estate sector. And I thought there's a lot of limitations in like what you could do as an individual within a larger organization. So I started Verdani Partners. It's a full-service real estate firm, and the goal is for us to be able to kind of scale sustainability and ESG practices to the real estate sector in a much more like cost-effective way. We build like teams with all the skill set that you need to bring to the table to run a successful sustainability program. And we're now currently managing sustainability programs for 11 real estate portfolios, about 4,300 properties nationally and internationally. And it gives us also, we're very proud that a lot of our clients rank among the top 5 and top 10 on GRES, which is, I think, a really good testament of the kind of successes of our programs. Yeah. But also, then was like, we want to scale, we want to affect change quickly, and we wanted to do more than just what we're doing for like our real estate clients. So after the last election, and the U.S. pulling out of the Paris Agreement, we decided to also start a nonprofit organization called Verdani Institute for the Built Environment. And the goal is to be able to advance sustainability at the building sector faster. And we're focusing a lot on education, collaboration, resiliency, and ways that we can scale those efforts even in a bigger scale beyond the portfolios we're working with, and working with cities and governments and educating people. Like, if we're educated and understood like climate change, I think we wouldn't be making the decisions. Like, I think we really need a much bigger sense of urgency. So we're really hoping to accomplish a lot too with our nonprofit arm as well.
Amazing. It's amazing that you've sort of taken the initiative, seen sort of a gap in an issue, and created companies and nonprofits that address it, which is amazing.
Yes.
You've worked with a lot of different businesses over the Verdani lifetime. Can you share some examples of how green buildings have impacted the overall well-being, productivity of the employees, and the bottom line for those companies who took the leap and invested in green real estate?
Sure. I think that any company that cares about their bottom line should be focusing on health and well-being and productivity. I think that the biggest cost that you have, right, is the salary that you pay for your employees. So any measures you can take to make your building more productive is going to have a huge impact on your bottom line. So green buildings are inherently healthier. You have better ventilation, better indoor quality, daylighting views, all those things that impact productivity of buildings. And there's a lot of studies, like Carnegie Mellon did a study that green buildings, like you see productivity benefits ranging between 5 to like 18%. So like, just to put it in perspective, like when you're going like on the conservative side, a 5% increase in productivity on a 100,000 square feet building, that's like $2 million a year. Wow. In additional value. Like, so it's really important to make sure you're focusing on that. And I think more and more tenants are paying attention to that, recognizing that, and making a choice to being in green buildings. There was also a recent study by Joseph Allen with Harvard University that shows that just also the impact on cognitive function in being in a building that's better ventilated, that have like, you know, proper CO2 levels, and like it's a huge impact, like 30 to 40% better cognitive function and performance in buildings that have better ventilation. So, so that's like, I think, you know, it was a really important thing, because sometimes it's like hard to quantify, like it's not less tangible than something that has a payback, but it's really important. Productivity benefits are like 10 times higher, the benefits that you get, financial benefits, from like savings in operating expenses. And you know, there's now research that shows that the companies that are investing in health and well-being and productivity are also outperforming the market, even like on S&P 500.
Wow.
And I think because of that, you know, organizations like GRESB, the GRESB assessment, have also incorporated health and well-being to their main assessment. So there's a recognition from investors that there's value from investing productivity, and they're now trying to make sure that they understand on, you know, companies that are investing their behalf, how they're taking action to make their buildings, you know, healthier and more productive. So I think it's a really important issue, and I think the market's certainly starting to pay more and more attention to it.
That's great to hear. I mean, you know, building green can often be quite costly upfront, investment-wise, and you know, I'd love to know how leaders can build a case and convince some of their biggest stakeholders to buy into it.
Yeah, I think in the beginning there was all this question, does it cost more? And I spent almost 10 years working for like a full-service real estate firm. I started with the development team, and I remember like even with our CEO, like we had a green fund, and we were looking at the additional costs, and we made a comparison between a non-green building and a green property. And even though you're going to invest a little more to make the building efficient, because you're going to have lower operating expenses, you're going to have a net operating income, which is going to affect asset value. And what we found is that your green building is a less risky of an investment. I mean, it's more risky for you to not take action, and you could come up with a brand new building that's inefficient, less competitive, and it's going to be outdated from the get-go. Another good, when I'm talking to clients too, is like every $10,000 you invest in energy efficiency can add $150,000 in asset value if you look at like a 6.5 cap rate. And we have like a really great case study. There was a building that I worked with. It was like a massive, like existing building retrofit. The building was like 3.6 million square feet. It's bigger than the Empire State Building, City National Plaza. I worked on that retrofit for like about 8 years. We bought that building for the debt. At the time, it was being considered for demolition for like $230 million. We invest $259 million. $11 million of that was just in efficiency improvements. But that added $66 million in asset value. The building reduced energy consumption by 40%, and we saved $4.3 million annually just in energy savings alone. And we sold for $900 million.
Wow.
So that was a great testament for us. So like efficiency improvement, sustainability, green buildings work financially, and because of that, we decided to roll out those retrofit and efficiency strategies to our entire portfolio. And so I think the market really like understands that now, and there's so many studies that shows that those higher performing buildings, sustainable buildings, are outperforming the market. I think the benefits are there, and I think it's a connected with higher management quality. I think anyone that understands in basic financials, I mean, they are doing sustainability for financially driven purposes, not because necessarily they care about the environment. But I think the beauty of it is that you can have a building that's more sustainable and efficient, and it's a win-win situation because that building is also going to be higher performing financially. So I think it's just like everybody should be doing it. It's just like,
I think you've given some great use cases for anyone out there who maybe is watching this and has doubted it in the past, that actually you can even make a profit one day off of investing in green
the companies that have higher percentage of high performance, sustainable green buildings are definitely outperforming the market. And there's like every single study out there can prove that.
Amazing. In what ways are you or your teams innovating to achieve some of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the UN has set?
Yeah, I think the Sustainable Development Goals are great, roadmap for action.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our efficiency programs are really heavily focused on like energy, water, waste, carbon emissions, and I think that gives you a much broader view of sustainability and things that are important on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our clients are now have adopted Sustainable Development Goals, the things that are applicable to kind of their respective industries. And for example, the estimated revenue and saving opportunities are $12 trillion per year through 2030 of like companies incorporating kind of sustainable development goals into their strategies. And GRESB, for example, is also incorporating sustainable development goals more and more into their kind of future assessments. And so yeah, with a lot of our clients, sometimes they incorporate like some of the ones that make more sense, so like 7 out of the 17.
Yeah.
But we're recommending all of our clients adopt them. And as an example of one of our clients that has adopted Sustainable Development Goals, like for example, like Sustainable Development Goal number 9 and number 11. Number 9, it's also focused on industry innovation infrastructure, building resilience infrastructure. And this client has achieved they had a 20% carbon reduction goal that they achieved 3 years early, and they're now setting a more aggressive, like 50% carbon reduction goal. The Sustainable Development Goals are like doing sustainable cities and communities that focus on making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. City National Plaza, Commonwealth Partners, which is one of our clients, they also achieve 100% certification for their LEED certification for their portfolio. And we're doing a lot of innovative things that I think to make cities more sustainable, like we're putting beehives on some of our roofs.
Yeah.
And I think bees are one of the most important insects in the planet. So we're doing like interesting things, and we started that because we put Sustainable Development Goals on our annual ESG report, and the company that has the beehives like, oh, I saw that you have like you're looking to doing more kind of native and pollinator friendly plants. We have we can help with this. So I think it's a great way when you put it out there that companies will reach out to you to try to help you actually achieve those goals.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like it holds you accountable and challenges you to make sure you're actually implementing them, rather than sort of saying to within the company or business, whatever it is, this is what we want to do, but maybe not having that accountability. Yeah,
because once you have the goal, now you have to be accountable to implement it, and you have to report on your progress like on an annual basis. So, but it's a great way for people to collaborate, kind of supporting, having your stakeholders engage with you in helping you achieve those goals.
So that's sort of a foundation for it as well, which is nice. Amazing. Yeah. I'm curious if you have maybe one killer fact that could get any business to buy into sustainability.
I think that for anybody that's focused on kind of long-term value, any company has to be thinking about sustainability. It's very short-sighted if you're, it's like the quote, like people, planet, profit. You have to think about that holistically. Yeah. And sustainability also serves as a proxy for management quality. There's so many studies that show, right, the sustainabilities or high performance buildings are outperforming the market with like higher properties values, less turnover, higher occupancy rates, higher rental rates. So like the kind of the financials are there, and I think because of that, investors recognize that, and they're putting a lot of pressure in companies to focus on performance. And so we have a client that got a huge investment because they have like an ESG program. So basically, if you're not thinking about sustainability, you're going to be less competitive. A lot of our clients are doing that for financially driven reasons. And the other thing is that even like if you're looking at public companies that are their stock prices sometimes are higher as well. And I think also when you're thinking of potential market slowdown or potential recession, right? If you have high performing buildings, your low performing assets are the ones that are going to suffer most. Yeah. And because high performance buildings have lower operating expenses, is even another incentive to focus on that, because that's going to mean better value. So it's a great time to think about high performance and sustainable buildings, especially greening existing buildings. So I think that if you're really being short-sighted and thinking about just kind of financial without regard for like economic and social facts, you're going to be less competitive in the long run.
That makes sense. Okay. So Danielle, as a recognized female leader in sustainability, what message would you want to send to someone just sort of starting out in their career, specifically a woman starting out in their career, who wants to make a difference and really have a voice in this industry?
Yes. So I think for anyone watching this video, they're probably interested in sustainability.
Yeah.
And you know, we have, like, according to the UN, about 11 years left to like affect change.
Wow.
So I think it's really important for anyone that cares about this to align themselves with organizations that are purpose-driven. You can also like you know, be an agent of change internally with your organization, but sometimes you're like swimming against the wave.
Yeah.
And it's great to also be kind of the agent of change inside your organization, your families, your communities. But you know, we also think we're running out of time. And if you really want to move fast, if your organization is not listening or like not willing to take action, it's really important to align yourself with companies that care, have aligned values, because you can move so much faster.
Yeah.
I'd say also some of the things, it's important to do things that are scalable because it's such a massive challenge and we need all hands on deck and everybody being part of it. I would also recommend aligning with organizations like the USUBC, becoming a member, going to events, networking, even like becoming a lead green associate professional. I think it's a great way to kind of build that foundation, sustainability, understanding like, you know, basic sustainability core values. And I would also make sure you never stop learning. I recently also wrote an article we published on International Women's Day, and I had like 10 steps or like tips for women. So I'll kind of mention some of them.
Great.
One, I mentioned being purpose-driven. You know, build your network and alliances is really important, both like men and women that can kind of support you in your career. If you're starting your own business, the key is to really like get your first client and survive your first 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And like, don't give up, but because the beginning is pretty hard. It's also all about sway. People talk about balance, but I think you have to be okay that sometimes your family will take priority and sometimes your work's going to take priority. And so you just have to navigate through that, because it's not going to be, you're not going to have balance on a given day. It's going to be more like over the year.
I love that one.
Yeah. And also use your feminine edge as a strength and not a weaknesses. And it's also important to have internal allies, especially if you're navigating like gender bias in the workplace, so that you have people that can support you, you know, through your career. It's really important to speak up, get heard, and get a seat on the table. I think as women sometimes like we are not as brave to like or courageous to like speak up, and we may have great ideas or having other people take credit for your work. So it's really important to like have courage and like, you know, speak up and share your ideas. I would say too, you know, when open doors to other people as well, like especially if someone opens the door for you, like you keep putting people with you, and make sure you have a good support system. And I think it's also important to think big and you know, have end game and results in mind. Sometimes you're not going to win every battle, but like just think about the war as a whole, like and just like kind of focus your efforts. And I think finally, I think it's really important to take risks and be persistent. As women, since like you're young women, we're often like coddled and protected and taught to not take risks, where we like really push our boys to take risks. So we're like, ignore all of that and you know, really be brave and take risks. You know, we're gonna fail sometimes, but I think what Sheryl Sandberg said also, your career is not gonna be like an upwards, you know, step. It's like a jungle gym. So like you're gonna have like ups and downs, but it's just important that you never give up. And even if you have ups and downs, like eventually you're making progress and, you know, going up. So I think those are, I think as women, we're so like empathetic, we care. I think we need more women to take leadership positions. And I think we can bring a lot to the table. And there's a lot of studies that shows that companies that have like more women in their boards, they're also outperforming financially, because it's really important to bring, like, you know, we're half the population. We need to bring those perspectives to the table so that you have more diverse views to be able to get better results. So I think it's really important that we take on more leadership roles, that we get courage so that we cannot achieve, you know, sustainability if we leave half of us behind. So it's really important that we kind of go for it and have more women kind of leading the charge.
Amazing. Well, I think you are a great example of that kind of woman. Like I said, you know, founding your own company and being in a leadership role for, you know, young women who might be seeing this and want to do something similar. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as well.
Thank you.